So as you have seen from the abstract, so I'm going to talk about the experience of internationally mobile students, or we call them international students, in the context of everyday bordering. So here, everyday bordering is one of the key concepts of my presentation. I will unpack it in a moment. But before that, like Didier, I would also like to show you a picture here as well. So this is an image. So first, I would like to ask two questions to all of you. Feel free to unmute yourself. First, do you know what this is? Second, have you ever or people around you ever received this type of notice? Yeah. Nope. All right. So we can maybe look at together. So there are different ticks here. Maybe start from the first one. So this is like the person who issued this notice is the immigration officer at the border area. And the second one is about why do they issue this and what's the consequence of this. So that person who received this may be allowed or rejected to enter the country. And the tick 3 is about so what happened on the person. So this person's travel document, like passport, also identity card, and also the travel like flights, tickets, have all been retained by the immigration officer. So who is this person? That is me. Okay, so because I haven't heard any of you to talk about this experience, so kind of make me unique. Okay, I'm the only one who had this kind of experience. Okay, I'm not telling you the reason at this moment, but I can promise you I didn't commit any crime. So, but I will talk about later about having this notice. But here it's kind of obvious. Today I'm going to talk about border. So what is border? So in terms of definition of border, so Will Davis and colleagues, they are describing border as a like something like a firewall bordering, which is at the state-managed border control points, such as the immigration officers at the airport or the border areas or some places for applying for visas abroad, things like this can be the border control points. And these are 4 functions for those firewall bordering, according to UV Davis and colleagues. So the first one is to filter citizenship. So as we have seen from the previous talk, so they are citizens from certain countries, which may make them easier or more difficult to cross the border or to enter certain countries. And the second function is to filter consumers. I guess for those people who have the experience of applying for tourist visa, you may have the experience of submitting your bank statement. Normally, you will suggest to submit the one with most of the transactions to show you buy a lot of things. Because with records like this, it means probably you will also spend a lot of money into your traveling places as well. And the third one is to use to filter labors. So people with certain skills or working in certain industries, they might be welcome to move to or immigrate to a new area or country. Taking the examples of taking UK as an example, so there are different type of visas issued to the workers, something like skilled worker visa or something called global talent visa. So by listening to the names, you can see there may be different like level of demands of those different type of workers by the name of the visa types. And the fourth one is also to filter the families. So actually family reunification is one of the common reasons for people to apply for visa, but the border control also can now like to filter those people who can maybe be able to rejoin their family who may not. So these are the 4 functions of the firewall bordering by scholars, defining by scholars. If we look at a little bit closer here, so the border, when we think about border, so it's more about the traditional border. One thing come into our minds probably will things like the lines, the walls, as we have seen on the picture here. So it's the Mexico and the America border. So something can be there to be seen. It's kind of visible or physical or spatial here. So there are also the definition of border from different researchers. I pick up 3 of them. So the first one, so talking about external state boundaries, they are the borders. So it's kind of the lines, the legal lines separating the different states. And the second one is kind of similar, like the borders is used to draw lines that divided the world into different places, territories, or categories. And the third one is from United Nations. It's kind of like similar, but looks more detailed. It's also about defining the boundaries, drawing lines, separating areas. So they also include some border crossing points, like the experience I had before is at the airport, and they are the places to do the border security check. So these are the definition of border. We're talking about the definition of the borders, but this is more about the, I would say, like the, for us from common sense or the traditional understanding of border. But today, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the border that further extend into people's everyday life. Here we call it everyday bordering. So it's about the border controls. It's kind of extend not just at the national territorial border, but also extend to people's daily life on the day-to-day basis. So this kind of firewall border permeates everyday interactions among the citizens of countries. So this is a shift from the external international territorial border to the more internal dimension of borders. And because of this, they also include incorporating technologies of everyday bordering, and within this, the ordinary citizens are demanded to become either border guards and or suspected illegal border crossers. That is the change being brought up by the everyday bordering. And then we are going to use UK as one of the examples here. So here you can see the title is called Constructing the Hostile Environment in the UK. So this is one of the policies issued by the Home Secretary Theresa May, the later Prime Minister in the UK, in 2012. So they are issuing a new policy strategy aiming at combating the illegal immigrants by making the life in the UK unbearable for those undocumented migrants to live, and then they would voluntarily choose to leave. So in general, this used to create a hostile environment for those people with the irregular or illegal immigrants. So as you can see on the left side of this slide, you can see there is called Go Home One at that time as kind of used for the campaign to encourage people to go back to home. And you can see that. And because of this new policy, so the ordinary citizens were also tasked with new responsibilities to become, like we mentioned before, become like the border guard. So the people such as doctors, landlords, police officers, and teachers, they are tasked with the responsibilities to ask those people who look or sound foreign to provide their document to prove their immigration status. So this adds more complexities of the relationships between the normal doctor-patient, landlord-tenant, police officer, ordinary citizens, or teacher and students. Because like if you need to rent a house, you need to provide your right to rent in the UK. And if you need to access to the public house, normally you will also be asked to provide you are the legal migrants in this country. So this kind of change the relationships between people in their everyday space. And this also the requirements for the documents or for being the legal migrants in the UK can also have some impact on the people from the EU with European backgrounds as well. So especially after Brexit. So for those people who live in the UK, and they need to, the government introduced the EU settlement schemes and for those people who like to continue to stay in the UK after the end of 2020. So they need to apply for a scheme to stay, to maintain the same status as they had before. Otherwise, in most situations or most ways, their life will be more similar to the international people or the immigrants from the other countries, the non-EU countries. And then we are talking about the everyday bordering practice within the UK context. But I would like to highlight here, this is not specific to the UK. There are also scholars from the different parts of the world who research on everyday bordering in different contexts as well. Here I include studies from different researchers from different countries who research on everyday bordering. I won't unpack too much here, but if you like to, maybe after the session, feel free to explore in your own way. And among those different domains that affect significantly by the everyday bordering practices, one of them is the higher education. This is also will be the research context for my proposed study. So in the higher education, after the 2009 end-to-end recruitment and the bordering policy of students was outsourced to private and state-funded education providers, also including the universities. So they are responsible for issue the visa to their students, and they are all sources to those responsibilities. And at the same time, they are issue a license to sponsor and monitor the non-European Economic Area students, we can call international students here, from arrival to departure. So with these new responsibilities, so the highly trusted sponsor status is very important for those universities. To maintain this status, they need to adopt the most robust monitoring system, do the checkings and using the computer system, and to retain their license to do the checking with their students. And because of this, some universities even over comply those regulations because they worry about risking losing their sponsorship status or their license. So this come back to the reason. This come back to my experience at the very beginning. So come back to this image. So you must be curious why I received this notice. This is because I finished my PhD earlier than my visa duration given by the Home Office. And one lesson to teach: never miss opportunities to brag about yourself. It's because I passed my PhD without corrections. So I didn't use the time that's given to me, like the longer time given to me. And my university have the responsibilities to report to the Home Office about my early completion of my study. Therefore, I was told my visa may be curtailed, but they don't know when because I need to wait for a letter from the Home Office. They will inform me, but I don't know exactly the time. But at the same time, I also need to sort out my new visa as well. So in the end, I do everything I need to do and I get a new visa once I receive a notice from the Home Office to see my old visa has been curtailed because I finished my PhD already, so I need to get a new visa. I did everything I need to do and I get my new visa. However, when I crossed the border, and I was stopped because the Home Office, they didn't take out the record of my curtailment of my visa. So that's why the immigration officers, they can still see the record, but without any reason explained to them. That's why I was stopped there. So after do all the checking, they know the reason and they let me to go. But I was told by them, they have report to the Home Office to do the modification. But they told me if they don't do that in the future, anytime I cross the border, I would be stopped like this all the time. So I haven't tried it for the second time. I don't know so far, but that's kind of my situation. But using this example, I think it's a really good one to show you like both the intersections between the bordering at the border control area, but also within the everyday bordering, kind of like structured by the university, like kind of implemented by the university at the university level. So this is about one of the examples from me about how universities need to take the responsibilities to monitor their students' study progress and report to the immigration office. And as mentioned before, so the universities, they worry about losing their status as the highly trusted sponsor. Actually, there was one university, they lost this status in 2012 because of the reason, as you can see in the second bullet point. So in one of the checks, so the UK border agencies, they find out a serious systematic failure in monitor its international students boarding in this university. As a result, in the end, this university's status, sponsorship status, was lost, was revoked by the government. So and they also give some two reasons here as well. One is because, like they say, like a significant among the sampled students, and a quarter of them, they didn't have the permission to stay in the country. And the second reason is because a significant proportion of them didn't have sufficient English, and there was no proof that half of those sample students were turning up to lectures. And this cancellation of sponsorship status of this university has some direct effects on their students, which the number is more than 2,000 students. So the direct consequence of this of losing this sponsorship is, the first one is those students who have already on the course of this university with a valid visa, they were given 60 days to find another course at a different university or college. And if they fail to do this, they must leave voluntarily or administratively removed within this certain time. And the second group of students, though, are also in the UK already, but without a valid permission, and they won't be able to stay in this country anymore. So after receive a notice of letter, they have to leave immediately without the 60 days leeway. And the last one is for those students who got a visa through this university and who were about to come but hadn't. So for them, they will not be able to come to the UK, and if they travel, they will be refused to enter. So those are the direct consequences of this losing the sponsorship status. Because the worrying about losing this sponsorship, so universities, they are adopting more rigorous attendance rules or more regular document checks on their international students, because they worry about losing the lessons. And at the same time, international students also play a very important role in the university's operation. Therefore, there's some university, they adopt some extreme measures to maintain they meet all the sponsor compliance requirements. So here you can see there's some examples selected from the UK Parliament records. So from the National Student Union, one of the case is some universities, they ask international students to travel a very long distance to have their passport checked. And some even go further. So they ask international students to have their fingerprint taken before each lecture to monitor their attendance. So this is about I would say, also relatively hostile environment in the higher education, but it's kind of obvious all those regulations is kind of targeting at a specific group of students, which is also the research focus of our proposed study, is the international mobile students, referring to those who studies cross-border and in a country other than their home country. And there is a significant increase of number of international students globally from about 2 million in 2000 to about more than 6 million within just 2 decades. So there's a big number of international students, and EU, including the UK, hosts almost half of those international students. And within their daily life, they need to live within the immigration regulations, but at the same time, they also come across some culture differences, things related to identity, well-beings, which makes their life could be more difficult. But of course, they are the people who have their own resilience, autonomy, so they may also find a way to cope with this. Here, I don't want to say international students is like deficient, but I just want to talk about their situation may be more complex. So as because of the visa or legal because their life experience compounded by the legal status such as the visas, residence, or citizenship. Therefore, we particularly want to research the sense of belongings of this group of students while they are negotiating the everyday bordering practice in the higher education. So here we give a quick definition of belonging. So it's about the emotional affiliation that's related to individuals to the material and social worth they inhabited and experience. And here we include two dimensions. The first one is also about the feeling of comfort, security, or acceptance in a place that is not one's home, but at the same time, it's equally important to have the feeling or to be recognized and understood. So this is about, so we particularly want to see how international students' sense of belonging is developed or within the everyday bordering context in the two countries particularly. So in this study, we want to do a comparative study between the UK and Germany. And I would like to introduce some contact information about international students who are studying in these two countries. So the first, and we can also find some similarities and differences across the two countries as well. So in terms of number of international students, both countries have a big number of international students. Actually, they both are the top 5 popular destinations of international students study. And in terms of country of origins, you can see there's some overlap, also there's some differences as well. And for the top disciplines that attract most international students, in the UK it's more business, engineering, technology, computing. In Germany, it's also about engineering, law, economics, social science, mathematics, and nature sciences. It seems to be more STEM-oriented in terms of their choice of subjects. And there are also the different rules, different procedures in terms of recruiting international students in the UK and Germany as well. So the first one in terms of tuition fees. So in the UK, international students normally need to pay for 2 or 3 times more tuition fee than the home students. So the average tuition fee for undergraduate students is more than 20,000. So this about and at the postgraduate level, we can see there are more than 17,000 pounds charged for the international students. But in Germany, most the public universities, they are free. But actually in this summer, we see a news from a university in Munich, and they started charging international students at the undergraduate level as well. I'm not sure whether this is like individual case or maybe become something more common in the future, but there will be something we can maybe keep our eyes on it. And in terms of application process, UK adopts a more centralized application system through the University and College Admission Service. So this is especially at the undergraduate level. So which means the application process is more standardized, and normally it makes students easier to apply for different universities at the same time. And then in terms of Germany, the application process is more decentralized and it's more competitive. Normally, students need to apply each university individually based on their recruitment criteria. And the next one in terms like the visa. So after enrolling to a program for international students, the visa duration normally also a bit different between the two countries. So in the UK, normally students can have additional 4 months beyond the duration of their study program. Normally it's about 1 month before the start of their study, and another 3 months after the time of their submitting their, I would say, like degree dissertations. And then after finishing their PhD, and a few years ago, the UK government introduced reintroduced the graduate route visa, which allows international students to stay for about 24 months to 30 months, depending on the degree programs. And since in Germany it's a bit different, so normally the visa will match the length of the degree program, and students will be able to apply for a 18-month graduate route visa after their finishing their degrees. And if international students would like to work during their study in the UK and Germany, so normally in the UK, they are allowed to work 20 hours maximally per week. And in Germany, so all year round, you are allowed to work 120 days. So we can see there are some similarities and differences between those two countries that are rooted in their economic, political, social, or cultural elements of these two countries and their relationship within or response to the global trends. So generally speaking, we will assume that UK are considered to be the first movers of internationalization of higher education, with a relatively more mature mode of commodification and export of higher education on a commercial base. But this situation in obviously Germany, its involvement in the global higher education market is a more recent thing, and mostly those involvement is more focusing on the nonprofit projects or the collaboration across countries at home or at home and abroad. So these are the different backgrounds of the two countries leads to the different experience of international students in the two countries. However, we find out like both countries, they have the restrictions on the international students and to manifest the border control within the higher education institution, such as the prevent legislation, compliance monitoring, and also the other legal complications around work of the international staff as well. So therefore, we are thinking to do a research project to have a holistic understanding of how everyday modern practice affect the experience and sense of belongings of international students. So here we want to examine their experience at different levels to give a more comprehensive understanding of their experience. The first one is the micro level. So we will look at more about the national policies. We have talked a little bit before as well. We also want to know the meso level. So it's more at the institutional level, the universities, the practice, the checks related to the work check, accommodation, financial service, and the others within the university and the local mediated through the university and the local administration. And also more importantly, we want to know the individual's experience to examine this at a micro level to look at their emotional and intellectual work involved in this everyday modern practice, while maintain their sense of belonging or even unbelonging while studying abroad. So therefore, we propose collaborating with colleagues from Salzburg University, Kyoko and Alex. We propose a research project about how do everyday modern strategies at the two countries in the universities of the two countries affect international students' sense of belonging in the higher education environment. So we are thinking to adopt a mixed method approach with embedded mixed method research design. But with the time consideration, I won't talk too much about this proposed project itself, but I want to talk a little bit about the qualitative dimension of this study. We are thinking to use a participatory research method to conduct the qualitative part, because with this method, we will be able to engage the individuals or communities in the research process and make them unable to contribute to their experience, perceptions, and knowledge in this project. And secondly, it's also a collaboration between researchers and participants to make the research more inclusive. And there are two research methods, two participatory research methods we are thinking to use. And the first one is the photo voice. I guess some of you have known this already. So it's more about using the photograph and to help participants to express their meaningful aspects of lives. So they will be able to help the students in this study to visualize their everyday realities to better illustrate their experience of everyday bordering and how this affect their sense of belonging. And the second one we are thinking to use is the audio diary. So this involves to ask participants to record their own thoughts or reflections in the audio format over a period of time. Therefore, we will be able to have their insights in terms of the evolution of their experience across certain time. So we are thinking to combine this both visual and oral research method, and to allow the international students to express their experience, perceptions, and hopes via the multiple media. But at the same time, it's also help those international students to better articulate the multiplicity of their belongings across the different practices, size, and also skills. So we don't know the result of this project yet, but hopefully I can do this project with the colleagues from Salisbury University. As mentioned before, it's Kiko and Alex. So that's pretty much everything I need to cover today. Just do a quick summary. So today we look at about the different theories on bordering, and particularly explore the everyday bordering practices in the UK and the context beyond. And we try to understand the experience of international students within the everyday bordering practices. And in the end, I just very quickly discuss a proposed study based on everyday bordering experience, everyday bordering practice within the higher education context in relation to the sense of belongings of international students. I would say this is just as a prompt. And if you like to conduct some research on similar topics, definitely you may have more interesting ideas as well. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. And here is the reference list. Feel free to explore more if you are interested in this topic. And any comments or questions are welcome. Thank you so much.